Let me ask you something powerful right now. Have you ever walked away from someone who tried to control you, belittle you, manipulate you, and then suddenly everything shifted? You weren't begging anymore. You weren't playing their game anymore. You weren't feeding their ego anymore, and in that silence, in that strength, you felt it, you won, not because you shouted louder, not because you beat them at their game, but because you stopped playing, and now, they know it, they feel it, they see it, and trust me, they hate it. Let's talk about what happens when the narcissist realizes you've won, the signs, the shift in energy, and why your growth, your peace, is their greatest loss. Let's get one thing clear. Narcissists don't lose battles, they lose supply. That's the oxygen that fuels their illusion of power. When you pull back your energy, when you no longer give them your reactions, your emotions, your attention, they start to suffocate in their own emptiness. Here are the signs that show the narcissist realizes you've won. They try to hoover you back in. When they feel you've broken free, they panic. So, what do? Suddenly they become nice again, charming, changed. But it's not love, it's control wearing a new mask. It's not an apology, it's a strategy. When this happens, it means you've hit a nerve. They feel the power shift, and they're scrambling. They start a smear campaign. You're no longer feeding their ego, so now they feed their false narrative. They'll twist your story, attack your character, try to turn others against you. But guess what? That's desperation. When the narcissist starts talking about you, it's because you're no longer talking to them. You've moved on, and that terrifies them. They mimic your growth. This one's wild. You rise, and suddenly they try to act like they're rising too. You become peaceful, now they're preaching peace. You focus on healing, now they're into growth. But it's just a performance. They're trying to prove they're still relevant in your story, even though you've already written them out of the next chapter. They act indifferent but obsessively stalk you. They pretend they don't care, but they're watching your stories, asking mutual friends about you, maybe even creating fake accounts to keep tabs. Their ego can't handle being irrelevant. So even if they're silent, they're tuned in, fully watching your every win like it's a personal loss. They try to replace you fast. Why? Because they can't sit with the shame of being left. So they try to win by finding someone new, showing you off to themselves like a prize. But inside, they know it's not the same. You were real, you grew, you got free, and no new face can fill that void. They suddenly play the victim. Now the world is against them. You're the abuser. They want sympathy because you won, and instead of owning their part, they flip the script. But you don't need to defend yourself. Your evolution speaks louder than their lies, and the people who truly matter, they see through it. Here's what I want you to hear with all your heart. Winning against a narcissist is not about revenge. It's about reclaiming your power. It's about choosing peace over chaos, healing over repeating cycles, purpose over pleasing. You didn't win because you fought harder. You won because you loved yourself more. You walked away, you grew, you healed, you broke the cycle, and they can feel it. And the most powerful sign that you've won, you're no longer triggered. You're no longer invested in who they are. You're too focused on becoming who you are. So keep going, keep rising, and remember, when a narcissist realizes you've won, they may react, they may attack, they may pretend, but deep down they know it, and so do you. You've already won. Let's go. When a narcissist realizes they're losing control over you, one of the first tactics they deploy is what psychologists call the hoovering technique, named after the Hoover vacuum, because they try to suck you right back into the toxic dynamic. This is not a genuine return of affection or change of heart. It's manipulation disguised as reconciliation. They might show up with dramatic apologies, grand promises, or sudden kindness that you never received before. They may say things like, "I've changed. I realize now what I lost," or "You're the only one who ever truly understood me." It can feel convincing, especially if you're still emotionally recovering, but make no mistake, this is strategy, not sincerity. What's actually happening underneath the surface is that the narcissist has sensed the power dynamic has shifted. You're not reacting the way you used to. You're not trying to fix things. You're not chasing. That scares them because it means they're losing the emotional supply they relied on: your attention, your energy, your validation. In their mind, if you're no longer feeding their ego, they no longer feel in control. So the hoovering begins as a last-ditch effort to restore that imbalance of power. They might suddenly become the ideal partner, friend, or family member they never were. You'll hear new words, see new behaviors, but they're surface level. What you won't see is deep accountability, consistent change, or long-term growth. That's because their motivation isn't to repair the relationship. Their motivation is to recapture access to you, access to your emotions, your reactions, your care. It's a control mechanism wearing the mask of love. And the moment they sense you're back in, the charm will vanish. The cycle will restart. That's why hoovering is one of the clearest signs that you've won, because if you hadn't grown, if you hadn't detached, they wouldn't need to fake vulnerability to pull you back. They know they've lost their grip, and they're scrambling to get it back by any means necessary. The hoovering phase is not a compliment. It's confirmation that your silence, your strength, and your separation are working. When the narcissist realizes they've lost control and influence over you, one of their go-to reactions is launching a full-blown smear campaign. This is a desperate attempt to rewrite the narrative, to paint themselves as the victim and you as the villain. The narcissist's ego cannot tolerate the idea that they were the problem, or that someone saw through their manipulation and walked away. So, instead of self-reflection, they turn to reputation destruction. They start spreading lies, twisting facts, and strategically placing half-truths to damage how others perceive you. What makes this tactic especially toxic is that it's done behind your back, often with a smile. They might go to mutual friends, family members, or colleagues and portray you as unstable, cruel, selfish, or even abusive. In reality, they're projecting their own behavior onto you. They are so terrified of losing the image they've crafted, the charming, intelligent, put-together persona, that they'll do anything to ensure people never see the real them. The smear campaign is their way of controlling the story after they've lost control of the person. This behavior becomes even more intense when they notice that you're thriving without them. Your silence is powerful. Your peace is threatening. So they try to tear down your credibility, hoping others will doubt you, question your integrity, and even isolate you. The narcissist knows that if they can destroy your reputation, they can protect theirs. But the irony is that these actions often reveal more about them than they do about you. People start to notice the pattern, especially if the narcissist has done this with others before. The more they talk about you, the more obvious it becomes that they're obsessed and bitter. One of the key reasons the smear campaign kicks off is because narcissists can't stand being irrelevant. They want you to look like the bad guy, not just to others, but to yourself. They want to trigger guilt, confusion, and self-doubt, so you'll come back and re-engage, because if they can't get your love, they'll settle for your pain. That's why staying grounded in your truth and keeping your distance is so powerful. You're not playing their game anymore, and they're lashing out in the only way they know how, through character assassination. When a narcissist sees that you're growing, healing, and rising above the pain they once caused, they often respond in a bizarre yet calculated way by mimicking your transformation. It's one of the most deceptive signs that they realize you've won. They start to copy your language, your mindset, your habits, and even your personal development journey. Suddenly, the very person who dismissed your goals, mocked your spirituality, or undermined your need for boundaries is now preaching the same principles they once rejected. This mimicry isn't admiration. It's not a sign that they've grown alongside you. It's an act of performance, an illusion of evolution designed to make them appear just as whole and enlightened as you've become. Narcissists are deeply concerned with image, not integrity. When they see you walking in truth, finding peace, and building a new life that doesn't include them, it threatens their illusion of superiority. Rather than reflect on their own behavior and do the hard work of change, they find it easier to imitate your growth, hoping it'll make them look like they're not the one who was left behind. This copycat behavior often shows up on social media first. You'll see them posting quotes about healing, self-love, or inner peace. They may even start engaging with the communities or causes that matter to you, trying to show the world and maybe you that they've changed. But if you look closely, there's no depth behind their words. No consistency, no true transformation. It's all about optics. They want to appear evolved without doing the actual work of healing because appearances are what they value most. What's really happening here is that they're trying to steal some of your light. Your evolution has created a gap between you and them, a gap they can't cross without facing their own dysfunction. So they pretend they've crossed it too. It's a desperate attempt to remain relevant in your story. They want to be seen as equal, as healed, as powerful, but deep down they know they're just echoing what they see in you, and if you've truly grown, you'll see through the performance. Real growth is quiet, steady, and internal, not flashy or strategic. Their imitation isn't flattery, it's fear. When the narcissist realizes you've emotionally detached and reclaimed your power, one of the clearest signs is their sudden shift to indifference. On the surface, they act like they don't care, like they've moved on, like your absence means nothing to them. But behind this carefully constructed mask of apathy is a deep obsession. They're watching you. They're studying your moves. They're keeping tabs on your life in every possible way they can without being noticed. This is where their obsession becomes covert. They might unfollow you on social media, but continue viewing your stories from fake accounts. They might claim to be done with you, but still ask mutual friends about you, bring you up in conversations, or react emotionally to your progress. Why? Because narcissists crave relevance. Your silence, your success, your detachment, it all creates a void they can't stand. You're no longer giving them what they fed off of. Your attention, your validation, your emotional reactions. That makes you more powerful than ever in their eyes, and it eats at them. This form of stalking isn't always digital either. Some narcissists might casually show up in places you frequent, or subtly insert themselves into conversations or circles where they know you exist. Their ego is deeply wounded, but they'll never admit that. So instead of reaching out directly, they monitor you quietly, needing to know if you still care, if you're struggling without them, or if you've moved on to something or someone better. This behavior isn't rooted in love or regret. It's rooted in control and comparison. They want to measure your life without them and secretly hope it's worse. At the same time, they'll maintain a facade of coldness and nonchalance. They want you and others to believe they're unaffected, that losing you didn't shake them. But the truth is, that very act of pretending is a reaction. The need to act unbothered is evidence that they are, in fact, deeply bothered. Their silence is not peace, it's strategy. It's an attempt to regain power by making you question your impact, your growth, and your choices. But if you stay grounded, you'll realize something powerful. Their obsession is fueled by your evolution, and no amount of pretending can hide that truth. When a narcissist realizes they've lost you for good, one of the fastest ways they try to regain control and protect their fragile ego is by replacing you immediately. Sometimes shockingly fast. One day you're gone, and the next, they're flaunting a new partner, friend, or business alliance. This isn't about love, connection, or compatibility. It's about appearances and damage control. It's about proving to themselves and the world that they are still desirable, wanted, and winning. In truth, it's one of the clearest indicators that they feel defeated by your departure and are scrambling to cover it up. The narcissist can't bear the idea of sitting alone with their own emptiness. They can't tolerate the silence you left behind because it forces them to confront their own inadequacies, something they've spent a lifetime avoiding. So rather than reflect, they distract. They jump into another relationship, project, or friendship with lightning speed, and then amplify it in public. They post the pictures, share the captions, and broadcast their new connection, all in the hopes that it sends a message. Look, I've moved on. I'm better off. But deep down, they're not celebrating their coping. What they want most is your reaction. They want you to see them happy with someone else and feel replaced, irrelevant, or regretful. They want to trigger jealousy or sadness in you so they can feel powerful again. That's why they make it visible. That's why they overdo it. They're not building a new relationship, they're building a performance, a show designed to provoke a response from you. And if you don't react, that drives them even more insane. Because it confirms that you've truly detached, and that their attempts to win are failing. Often, the person they replace you with isn't someone new, it might even be someone from their past, or someone they previously devalued. The point isn't quality, it's access. Can this person be manipulated? Can they serve as a tool for attention or validation? If the answer is yes, the narcissist moves forward, not because they're ready, but because they're empty. They're trying to fill the void you left behind, but they're doing it with a counterfeit connection, one that lacks the authenticity you once gave. This quick replacement isn't love, it's panic disguised as progress. When the narcissist realizes they've lost control over you and nothing else has worked, not charm, not rage, not replacement, they often resort to playing the victim. It's one of their final and most manipulative tactics. In this phase, the narcissist rewrites the story to cast themselves as the one who was wronged, hurt, or abandoned. The person who once dismissed your feelings, denied your truth, and devalued your worth suddenly wants the world to see them as fragile and misunderstood. This isn't accountability, it's a carefully designed narrative to regain sympathy, attention, and power. The narcissist knows they can no longer reach you directly, so they start working through others. They may tell mutual friends, family members, or even colleagues stories about how cruel you were, how you changed, how you hurt them when they were just trying to love you. These stories are filled with emotional manipulation, tears, exaggerations, and selective truths, all intended to paint you in a negative light while positioning themselves as the innocent party. It's not about healing, it's about recruitment. They're trying to win allies, create confusion, and isolate you emotionally. This tactic serves two purposes. First, it gives the narcissist a new form of validation. If they can't get your admiration, they'll seek your pity, or at least the pity of others. Second, it allows them to continue avoiding accountability. By framing themselves as the victim, they never have to confront the pain they caused or the truth about who they really are. Instead of looking in the mirror, they point fingers and craft a new version of reality where they're never the problem. The victim narrative is especially dangerous because it can confuse outsiders who don't understand narcissistic behavior. People may start questioning your decisions or doubting your experiences. That's exactly what the narcissist wants. They thrive in the chaos of misperception because it gives them continued influence. But what reveals their game over time is the pattern, the consistency of blame, shifting, the lack of true remorse, and the way their story changes depending on who they're talking to. Their performance of pain isn't rooted in truth, it's rooted in strategy. The narcissist plays the victim not because they're broken, but because they refuse to be held accountable for the damage they've done.